What's up guys, it's Chris bringing you another real estate related video, but this week it's not about how hot the real estate market is here in Pennsylvania, nor is it about what you can do as a buyer to get your offer accepted, and it is not about what a seller should be looking for if they receive multiple offers. As a matter of fact, I'm tired of talking about what is the norm. This crazy real estate market. But this week, I want to talk a little bit about pre-settlement walkthroughs or inspections and why they're important to you. Now, this actually came up as a topic in conversation with another realtor, and I can't believe how many realtors are allowing their buyers to go to settlement and they're not doing a pre-settlement walkthrough. But before we get into any of that, a little bit of house cleaning. I'm Chris Nelson with Gemstone Realty, and this channel is all about real estate advice, tips, and tech. So if any of that excites you, you are in the right place. But do me a favor, go ahead and drop me a comment, consider subscribing, and mash that bell so that you're notified of my future content. So as I mentioned, this week is all about pre-settlement walkthroughs and why they're important and why you should be doing them. So the purpose of a pre-settlement walkthrough, well, there's actually two purposes of the pre-settlement walkthrough. The first one is to make sure that any agreed upon repairs that the seller has agreed to do are done and that they're done accordingly. So you want to make sure that if a seller has agreed to fix a window or patch a hole in the wall or whatever the repair may be, you want to make sure that it's done and that it wasn't just slapped together. You want to make sure that it is aesthetically appealing and that it is done accordingly. And the other purpose for doing a pre-settlement walkthrough is, well, it's simple. You want to make sure that the house you are buying looks exactly like it did when you first saw it or when you presented the offer. Now, keep in mind, it may have been 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks when you presented your offer, and maybe the house was occupied and now it's not. You'd be surprised how much damage can be done in 6 weeks, especially when people are vacating and moving furniture out of the property. So you want to make sure that you are doing your walkthrough so that the property is exactly what you thought it would be. Now, in the agreement of sale here in Pennsylvania, there is language that states that the seller will maintain the property in its current condition up until closing. So in the event the seller were to create some type of damage, let's say when they were moving, they put a hole in the wall or they ripped the carpet, or you see where I'm going with this. Well, technically it is the seller's responsibility to correct that damage. They do need to make you aware of it, but it is their responsibility to bring it to your attention and repair it. Now, we assume most people are going to be honest, but you never know. Some people aren't always honest and they're not going to let you know that there was some damage done. So your pre-settlement walkthrough is your opportunity for you to see any of these defects that may have come up after the fact. So how does it work? In Pennsylvania, you are actually allowed to do 2 pre-settlement walkthroughs. And again, one of them generally is so that you can confirm any repairs are done. And the other one is to make sure that the property is what you expect for it to be. Now, I want to pause right there because a lot of times I've noticed buyers and their realtors will do the pre-settlement walkthrough the day before closing. And listen, I'm not beating anyone up. If you decide to do your pre-settlement walkthrough the day before closing, so be it. No harm, no foul, so long as you're actually getting the inspection done. But I would actually encourage that you do it on the day of settlement. You never know what could happen overnight, and it could be something as small as a tree limb falling and hitting the house. Either way, you want to make sure that you're aware of it, because after you make settlement, you're not going to be able to call the seller up and tell them that they need to come back and pick up the tree limb because, well, you should be doing it during your pre-settlement walkthrough. And I'm back. You wouldn't know it, but had to take a little break because, well, unfortunately, we're dealing with a sick baby today, and he needed a little bit of attention. But right back to where I left off. So how it works is, since you have these 2 opportunities to do the pre-settlement walkthrough, it's going to be up to your realtor to communicate with the listing agent or maybe the seller so that they have notice of your walkthrough. Now, it is the seller's responsibility per the PA sales contract to have the property accessible with fully functioning utilities. So all water, heating, AC, oil, if necessary, needs to be there so that when you do your walkthrough, you can go through and make sure that the home is fully functional and going to operate as designed. And generally when you are doing these inspections or these walkthroughs, you're given a reasonable amount of time, maybe about an hour, give or take. And if it's a large property and you need more time, I'm pretty sure that time will be granted. Make sure that your realtor is getting you confirmed and set up for these walkthrough inspections. And maybe you only need to do one pre-settlement walkthrough. If there weren't any repairs that you need to go and see, or make sure that they were done accordingly. Maybe you're just doing the walkthrough the day of settlement, not the day before settlement, but the day of settlement, just to make sure everything is the way that it's supposed to be. So what should you look for? Well, during your walkthrough, you want to test as much of the property as you possibly can. Now, to help you out, I've actually included a cheat sheet down in the comments that you can go ahead and use for your walkthrough. But just to give you an idea, you want to make sure that the house is functional. So obviously you're going to go through and take a look at everything that the eye visibly sees. You want to make sure that everything is there that is supposed to remain and everything that is supposed to go has been taken. All of the previous owner's personal property has been removed. You want to make sure that they have removed all of the trash. One thing that I've noticed and can become a turning point during a walkthrough is when the seller takes large items and puts it out by the curb for the trash company to collect during the next trash pickup. Not only does that look horrible, well, the new owner isn't guaranteed that the trash company is going to come and pick those items up. Maybe the account has been canceled, or every trash company has their own policy for large pieces of trash. But again, these are things that you want to make sure aren't there. You want to make sure that things like mailbox keys or garage door openers or remotes that operate specific fixtures like fans are there so that you don't have to track them down and or replace them. You also want to make sure that the toilets flush and don't leak. You want to make sure that the heat and or the AC works. You want to make sure that there is hot water. So you're going to go through and run through the house and open up all of the closet doors, all of the cabinet doors. You're going to turn the stove on. You're going to run the dishwasher. Again, there's a laundry list of things to look for when you're doing your pre-settlement walkthrough. So hopefully the attachment provides some value to you. And again, there's going to be some atypical things, whether or not there's a pool or if there's a shed or a basketball or tennis court, because some of these things like pools have their own equipment, right? So you want to make sure that they're functioning accordingly and that the things that should be there, pool covers or accessories to the pool, are also there for you to use. So these are the things that you should be looking for when you are at your pre-settlement walkthrough. Now, what happens after? Well, it's either going to go one of two ways. You're either going to go and do the pre-settlement walkthrough and everything's going to be fine, which hopefully it is. Hopefully the listing agent worked with their seller to make sure that they are handing over the property the way that it should be, broom swept per the Pennsylvania agreement of sale. But at the end of the day, it's either going to go in one of those two directions. And if it does go accordingly, both parties, buyer and seller, should be signing off on an addendum stating that they did do the walkthrough and that it meets the buyer's level of expectation. Trust me, you want to have that document on file. Now, if it doesn't go accordingly, well, it's really going to determine what happened or what isn't to the buyer's liking. That will determine what the likely course of action will be. Sometimes it's just a matter of removing some additional content from the property. I have personally taken things and put them in my trunk and taken them to settlement and said, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you left this behind, and my buyer wasn't willing to just move forward knowing it was there. Or maybe it's a matter of pulling an item out to the trash, or if it's a large item, maybe talking to the neighbor and say, listen, you know, Joe and Sally, they just moved out and they forgot to take this piece with them. Would it be possible? Could you store it in your garage so that come next trash pickup, it could be thrown away then, right? So if my buyer doesn't have level of comfort of leaving that behind, again, maybe you can use or resort to a neighbor, or maybe there's a quick repair that could be done. Now, the one thing that makes it challenging is if there is a defect, the seller really can't credit the buyer or adjust the numbers as far as the sale price goes without creating some turbulence for settlement. This could result in delays, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of liability that comes with real estate. So if there are some defects or things that aren't done accordingly and they need to be fixed, well, At the end of the day, it may be painful, but it might be in everyone's best interest to go ahead and postpone settlement. The other option would be to consider having the title company or one of the brokers hold an escrow until the repairs are done. But a lot of times the title companies don't like to do that, nor do the brokers involved. And a lot of times the seller doesn't either, because we're going to ask for 2 times the amount of the repair be held. So if it's $1,000 repair, well, we're going to want to see at least $2,000 in escrow so that we know that this work will be done and be done with urgency. So there you have it, folks. Again, this week is completely different than some of the other videos that I've been putting out, but hopefully you still found some value in it. So let me know, if you purchased a home, did you do a pre-settlement walkthrough? Did it go accordingly? And if not, and you're planning on purchasing a home, well, keep this video in mind and remember that there is a handout for you to use during your pre-settlement walkthrough. With all of that being said, once again, I'm Chris Nelson with Gemstone Realty. Do me a favor, check in next week for the very next Just a Tip Tuesday with Chris. Until then, take care.